Good evening. On behalf of the Kingston City School District and the Kingston City School District Board of Education, I want to thank you for participating tonight. We're recording this meeting and we'll post it on the Kingston City School District YouTube channel tomorrow morning. I have a few brief comments, but we'll leave most of our time to answer your questions. You can send your questions at any time during this meeting. We will probably not get to every question, but we will do our best, and there'll be another town hall after winter break. Questions and answers from our meeting today will be compiled into a running document that will also be posted on our website early next week. While the purpose of this town hall is to give some updates and answer questions, we must acknowledge the profound sadness and shock that the entire community is feeling from the events of last Thursday evening. Our hearts go out to the family of the victims of this devastating and senseless act that took the life of one of our students. Kingston City School District greatly mourns this loss. Our crisis management team is on call, providing both in-person and virtual opportunities for all who need support during this most painful time. Our dedicated and caring social workers, psychologists, and guidance counselors are here to help all who need them: parents, students, faculty, staff, or members of our community. Please call our hotline for immediate assistance at 845-382-6. It's 845-943-3826. Two weeks ago, we announced that we would pivot our remote learning plan in response to the increased spread of COVID-19 in our community and the resulting need to quarantine close contacts of confirmed positive cases and designated positive cases. While the spread within our schools at the time remained low, our ability to maintain continuity of learning and adherence to our COVID-19 protocols was a serious concern. At the time, we announced that we hoped to return to our hybrid learning model on January 4th. We are working closely with the Ulster County Department of Health and our medical director to continue to monitor the spread in our area. We will consider the current community data as well as our staffing situation and decide if this date needs to be adjusted over the next few days. As I stated several times, this is not where we want to be. We want our students in school, and our students need to be in school. But this virus does not respect our desires, and we want to take action that will keep our students, faculty, community as safe as possible. We are also monitoring the possibility of being identified as a yellow or orange zone. Should we be identified, we'll be required to test a certain percentage of our in-person students, faculty, and staff. Our school nurses have been trained by the Ulster County Department of Health and are prepared to administer these tests should they be necessary. We will not test without permission. To that end, we will be sending out a permission slip to all parents and guardians tomorrow. Lastly, while we do not control this virus, there are measures we can take that give us more control and that could assist us in ensuring our students are able to return to some level of in-person learning. As the post-Thanksgiving surge showed us, large gatherings and travel promote the spread of COVID-19. I know it's a difficult time of year for this. I too am struggling with the idea of not being able to continue family traditions, not spending Christmas Eve with my parents or Christmas Day with my extended family. But I know this is what needs to be done. I urge every one of you to do your best to celebrate safely during this holiday season. And I will start to take questions. Yes, I can see it. Thank you. Given the high level, the first question, given the high level of COVID, numerous cases within the district and likely increases due to holiday family gatherings, will the Kingston City School District be extending the fully remote learning until further into January? As I said in my opening statement, we are still looking at that. We're continuing to track any of our staff who are quarantined or who have been tested positive, and watching obviously what's going on in the community as well. So we are looking at that over the next couple of days. I'll be consulting with our school medical director as well as the Ulster County Department of Health, and we hope to make that decision within the next couple of days. Is it possible to keep the same start time schedule for the rest of the school year? It has been very frustrating going from 9 a.m. start to 10 a.m. start to the current 8:55 start time. My children's schedules have changed 3 times already this year. These changes result in a loss of crucial services because staff aren't able to accommodate frequent time changes, not to mention frustrating my children and household. Thank you for understanding. Actually, we've made those changes so students could receive their services, especially when we move to the remote learning. But I appreciate that concern, and I know that it's confusing and frustrating to see the times change. But if you're having issues with services not being delivered to your students, again, the in-person, when we have our students in-person hybrid, a lot of our scheduling revolves around our ability to provide transportation to all of our buildings and all of our students. When we went to remote, a lot of it has to do with our teacher schedules and being able to put in certain programs and services for students to make, so we have to make adjustments at that point. But again, I'd encourage you to call your school building principal and express the concerns you have, especially if you're finding that your student is not receiving some services that they need. That's not something we want to have happen. My child has been turning in incomplete assignments with no work at all. It shows that they have been completed until her teachers, which have been wonderful and very much appreciated, contact us or grade her work. Is there something Teams is working on the parent can see the work their child is turning in? Actually, the way to see your parent work, that's the child's work that's turning in, is to go in using your child's password. So that would be one way. Again, we have the weekly reports, but you're right. A lot of the reports that come out of Teams just tell us the activity or if they turn things in, and then is the teacher's role to take a look and then communicate with you if something's not being completed, as they would if they handed something in class that wasn't complete or done well. So again, communication with your teacher is key. The best way to get into Teams for your child and see their information is using their login and password. And actually, you could, if there's other questions around that type of thing, we could always call our support desk, as well as, again, I'd say first step as a teacher, but your support desk is 845-943-3020. Please clarify the mask policy for faculty and staff. Are they allowed to be close together or in the same room without masks? No one should be close together without masks. That should not be happening. Our mask policy is a common sense policy. Wear a mask. There's obviously, if you're 150 feet from someone, or and you're working in one station and they're working another, that's one thing. But still, masks. Wear masks. It's just again, common sense, and I continue to talk about community and taking care of each other and wearing our masks to do that. So our policy really is people should be wearing their masks. If you're alone in your room, okay, that makes sense. But if you're with other people, you should be wearing your masks. Is there a plan in place to vaccinate all district employees, including substitute employees, for COVID? No, there is not. Right now, as I said in my opening statement, we are working on a plan, or we have a plan to I'm confusing vaccinating and testing. So no, we actually have no plan at this point about vaccinations. We don't know when or if we will get them or how we would distribute those. Again, that would be something we would have to work through the Department of Health. That's a little bit above our mandate. We are working with the County Health Department, and our nurses are trained to test should we be in a position where we're required to test a certain percentage of our students and staff. But as far as vaccinations, we have no information on that at this point. When we do return to in-person hybrid model, can children have the option to attend school in person more than the 2 days if the number of students attending in person are low in their school and classrooms? That's actually something we're working towards. We've been monitoring the data, monitoring our attendance. We have, we kind of have two groups. We have a group of people who have declared that they would stay remote, and then we have some students who are just staying remote and not coming, but they have not declared that. So we're unsure if they're just absent or just have to be home for a certain reason or a certain number of days, or we're looking for that consistency. And we're going to reach out to those families and say, and ask, your child hasn't been here in X number of days for in-person. Can we assume that you would like to declare to be remote? That way we know the spaces are opened up and we can do that. But we've been working on those numbers for several weeks now, just to see what the kind of looking for that consistency in that data to be able to do that. So yes, we are working toward that, and we would like to be able to get as many students who want to be in school for as many days a week as possible. Is there any information on whether Regents exams or SAT or ACTs will be offered this year? Well, we did offer the SAT back in November. I think it was November 9th. We had the Saturday SAT, which we did administer at Kingston High School. The ACT, we are not going to be administering right now. And the Regents exams, that's up to the Board of Regents and the Commissioner of Education. We have no indication that the June Regents will be canceled at this point. We know that the January Regents will be canceled, but as far as June, we don't know. And I received the same question about our 3 through 8 testing. And again, we've received no information that they would not be administered this year. So we're just waiting for, we're preparing to administer the tests, but we're waiting to see if there's any change in that. Could teachers teach one student at a time doing private lessons such as 1 to 2 hours per child? Well, obviously our teachers are teaching classrooms of teachers, of students, I should say. You know, having a tutoring opportunities or tutoring centers is things that we have talked about administratively and how we could implement that, whether it be in person or online. But as far as a teacher being freed up every day to teach 1 or 2 students or 1 student for 1 to 2 hours, we just don't have that capacity during the school day. Given the spread, even while remote, and even with every precaution taken, several staff and faculty members were still put on quarantine. Wouldn't it make more sense to keep us remote until widespread distribution of vaccine is available? Again, we don't know when that will be. I think that there's, you know, again, the spread inside the school buildings has not been, we haven't seen a huge spread. You know, we have some positive cases, but the spread inside the school building has not been really the issue. Often it was people coming in who actually had, you know, contact with someone or contracted COVID-19 and came to us. And one of the things with our safeguards in place and with the capacity we have between our COVID-19 director, our school nurses, our checklists, being able to stop that person or identify that person, direct them where they need to go, and then isolate the people who they may have come in contact is actually a way to stop the spread overall in our entire community. So, you know, we are going to keep watching the data. If it's necessary to stay remote for longer, we will stay. But again, sometimes, you know, we look at the cost of our students being out of school, and we're trying to make sure that our COVID-19, you know, practices and safety protocols are tight and efficient and followed, and we can bring our students into school. But again, you know, we're going to continue to watch the data and make some decisions around that. In this time of uncertainty, is there a way we can have one plan for an extended amount of time? It is really hard for teachers, students, and families to be constantly flip-flop back and forth between remote and hybrid. Even if we go to the remote, it at least gives everyone some sort of consistency until things are safe. Yeah, I mean, you know, we took the first 5 weeks of school. That was an extended period of time where we stayed remote for those first 5 weeks. We brought our students back, obviously, and then we had this hiccup. And I had said, I think probably back in August, that we were preparing for the possibility to go back and forth if we needed to. So I know that it's disruptive. We're trying our best to bring our students in and to create some normalcy that way. We just don't have a lot of control of what the spread is, and I think there's both sides of this conversation. There's people who would say, you know, I'd rather have my student just be all remote, and there's others who would say I'd like to have my student in school when he or she can, for as long as he or she can. and if they have to go back and forth, we have to go back and forth. I know it's a, it's a bit of a roller coaster, but we are, again, monitoring what's going on in our community and the possibility for a longer remote period is possible. I mean, obviously you all see the newspaper and you read the websites and you know what's going on. So we're continuing to look at that, and we'll make those decisions around data. In the last board meeting, the idea of more help for our children was brought up due to the increase in failing grades. How's this district addressing this? It has been difficult to get extra help for our students as teachers are overwhelmed and have limited time. Yeah, there's a lot of different things that are going on between credit recovery at the high school level, also to identifying, what areas students are struggling with, especially what particular classes, or what is causing this reduction in grades. Is it because students are handing things in that aren't done? Is it because there's not a completion of homework? Is it because students can't get online? We're looking at all those things, but we're working with our faculty and staff. Again, they know your students better than anyone, so they know where the areas that we need to make the improvements and need to provide more support for your students are. Can you let us know about the status of kids on a wait list to get Chromebooks? It's obviously challenging if kids have shared devices to do schoolwork. Yeah, right now our Chromebook wait list is very, very low right now. It's very small. And we're actually receiving more Chromebooks now. We also, one of the other things, and I'll put this out to parents and I put it out to our building principals, if for some reason you received a Chromebook and you are not using it, your child decided they like the desktop in your home better, or some other reason they're not using it, please return it to your school building, because we monitor how many students have Chromebooks and how many have turned them on, and we have a lot of Chromebooks that are out there with families that have not been turned on. So we're encouraging parents, please bring those back if you're not using them. And the same thing with our hotspot devices. About 30% of our hotspot devices were taken, but to be used by students who have not turned them on. So again, we're reaching out to those families. Please bring them back to us. So again, but our wait list is very short. We have another shipment of Chromebooks actually coming in. It got delayed because of the snowstorm last week. So we don't think we'll have a wait list at all within the next few days by the time we get back from break. Is the district tracking any information about students, faculty, staff who had COVID and are struggling with long-term impacts? We are keeping our tracking our information about students, faculty, staff who've had COVID, but as far as the long-term impacts, no, we have not. I mean, we leave that to their primary care physicians. We leave that to the Ulster County Department of Health. And again, that's, it's not really within our jurisdiction, I guess, for lack of a better word, to ask people what their health condition is after the fact. So we are tracking what it looks like, our staff, how many are being tested positive, and our faculty, and our students as well. So we have numbers that we can make judgments and make decisions using that data. Will the decision to extend the remote learning be made within the next 2 days? It would be helpful for parents to know prior to winter break. That's what I'm striving for. Again, I want to make sure we make the right decision on both sides of this. So, I'm seeking the advice of our medical director as well as the Ulster County Department of Health. I know many of the districts in our community have extended, some further into January than others, but we're looking at, if we are to extend, when is the right time to extend until? Is it the 8th? Is it the 19th? What is that right date? What is that date that would put us in a place where we think we could go back, and as the last one of the other people who sent in a question, that we could go back and say, okay, we feel pretty comfortable that we can go back to our hybrid model and stick there for a while. The back and forth is not what we want. We were prepared for it. We knew that the possibility was there. But that's, yeah, so I think the next couple of days will be important, and the information that I receive will be important in making that decision. But we like to inform parents as soon as possible. I understand that. Is it possible to consider in-person school for elementary schools, even if older grade levels stay remote? The science seems to Science seems to show that in-person school is safer for younger children who do not appear to spread the virus as effectively as older children. Yeah, I mean, our original plan was to use the issue there is, and again, this goes back to another question earlier about the number of students who will stay remote no matter what. The issue there is again the safety protocols. No more than really we figure about 14 students would be the absolute maximum we could have in a classroom. So again, we're looking at just not having the teachers to just have all of our elementary teachers, all our students, and while our secondary teachers teach remotely. But if we have that remote situation where we can bring more students into school for more days, that would be able to. I mean, I think that that would be not only elementary, that'd be across the board. So again, we're looking at everybody. I understand the question about elementary, and I have heard that and read that that information before as far as the spread in the younger grades. But again, that's about our capacity and the number of teachers that we have and the COVID-19 regulations that we have to follow. If a parent does not sign permission slips in regard to allowing their child to be COVID tested by the school nurse, does that disqualify the child from entering the building? No, it does not. The yellow and orange zones have certain percentages of students that have to be in person, students, faculty, staff that have to be tested in order for us to have in-person learning. So that doesn't mean 100% of our parents have to say okay, and we only need a certain percentage. Actually, it's 20% at the yellow and 30% at the orange. So we are, but we're not going to deny someone an education based on the fact that the family does not want them to be tested. Obviously, if we don't get the percentages that we need, we wouldn't be able to go to an in-person model. We would have to stay remote. What is the district doing to address grading? Is the district going to revise its grading procedures and policies to address education during the pandemic? Well, we've been using our normal grading methods as far as the secondary is concerned, elementary as well. Elementary is more of a skills-based report card, as anyone who's an elementary parent knows. But we've been trying to stay to our normal grading policy. But again, this is looking at our first quarter. And having a lot of conversations with our building principals and with our central office administrators, we are looking at the grading practices and if there are changes we need to make or adjustments we need to make. Is there an opportunity to introduce help hours on certain days after the standard school day for students struggling with homework? Yeah, that goes right back to a question we had before. I think there's several opportunities that we're looking to be able to put in place for students who are struggling, especially not only with homework, but just in general with whatever topic or subject area that they're in. So we are, trying to see what we have as far as our capacity to do that. But that is definitely something that's on the table. If you do bring students back for hybrid learning, when is the next cutoff date for the students that have been remote to have the option to go hybrid? So right now, the cutoff date is the date to come back would be February 1st for those people. So we need to know before February 1st. We're working on several different models for the second semester that we will be communicating over the next month or so with parents so that we can, give parents an option to stay hybrid, to stay remote, or to go hybrid while being flexible and being able to, bring as many students in as possible. So anyone who's decided to go remote for the first semester, that is over, for lack of a better term, on February 1st. So we will be communicating back out very soon about asking people to either re-up as remote or decide to go remote or commit to being, staying in the hybrid model. Again, so we can look and see how many students can we bring back for how many days. What can parents and the community do to pressure the state to relax assessment requirements for this year? Well, as I've always said, the best way to communicate the things that you would like to see happen in Albany is through your local elected officials. So our assemblyman and our senator. I would recommend giving their office a call or writing their office a letter or an email and having letting them know exactly how you feel. I think the more people who do that, the more compelled they will be to listen and maybe carry that message forward to Albany. So and I know again, state education department is separate from the state-led assembly and senate, but there is a cooperation there and an understanding there, especially when the constituents speak. While I understand the issues involved in remote learning, it has been very disappointing to have no honor roll. Students who consistently work hard, even harder given the current circumstances, to attain their place on the honor roll are not being given the appropriate recognition. Other local districts have continued their normal honor roll. Can this be reconsidered? Yes, we're discussing, what we could do, even if we did something different than a traditional honor roll. We try to take into account all the difficulties that are going on for all of our students. And I've had conversations with multiple parents on this, on both sides of this issue. Some parents who were pleased because their student usually makes the honor roll but didn't this year, and the disappointment there. Are some students who got a late start because technology problems, and they ended up not having the grades that would get them there. And so there's a disappointing piece of it. Then there's a disappointing piece of it, I get it, for the student who did achieve honor roll. So we're having that discussion. Is there adjustment we can make? Can we give a date to parents and students, say, okay, this is when we're going to start our honor roll back up? So we're working on that. But I've had a lot of conversations, and I understand there was a lot of conversation in the community about the honor roll, and we understand that. And we're trying to be equitable, trying to be fair, and we're trying to be sensitive to all of our students. And I understand that there's voices on both sides of that issue. What is the status of state aid funds for schools? Are we looking at losing positions for the 21-22 school year? Once again, I have to say I don't know. We've received no indication that there's any change in the revenues in Albany that would impact that would say we're not going to have a cut, but we did see withholdings, I should say, not cuts at this point. We did see withholdings to some of our state aid over the summer, but then we did receive several state aid payments over the last October, November, where we didn't have the withholding. So I'm being told, after some meetings at the state level, that we will know more in the middle of January. So we're kind of in a wait and see situation. And now we know that the stimulus package has passed in Washington, and there is a significant amount of money there for schools. That may change things as well. So that may fill these, make sure that fill these gaps, so there's not those shortages in our budget, and we don't have to make layoffs. But again, I don't know at this point. We're keeping our ear to the ground to try to find out what's going on and hear what people are talking about. But there hasn't been a lot of conversation about it, and we're being told middle of January. If a staff member has tested positive and fulfilled his or her quarantine, would they later still be quarantined if in contact with another positive person, student, faculty member, or family? You know what? I don't really know the answer to that question. Obviously, there's a belief, and I don't know for sure that there's some level of immunity for people who have tested positive and who have then can come back in, and there's a certain period of time that they see that there's an immunity there. But I really don't know that question. But I will ask our COVID-19 director, and she probably knows that question better than I could. She probably answer that question better than I could. Can you please talk more about the COVID testing that would be required by the state if we were entered into the orange zone? Would it be saliva testing? No, it wouldn't be saliva testing. It would be the nose swab testing again, our nurses have been trained they're trained by the Ulster County Department of Health to administer those tests. We are working on our protocols and how we would do that without causing huge disruption in our schools. But no, it would not be a saliva test. It would be a nasal swab. We will do a town hall in Spanish in the new year. I know I've been asked that question several times, and I've been trying to work out the semantics of that, but I think we are ready to do that. And when we come back from winter break in 2021, we will have a town hall in Spanish. And one of our objectives, I should say, over the next few days is to set some set dates for our next few town halls. So keep your eye on the website so you can see when our next town halls will be and when our town hall in Spanish will be. Thank you for your hard work during this impossible time. I hope you are doing well too. Thank you. I don't know who keeps giving my mother this address. With the shootings in Kingston increasing, is the district working with the city and the county to improve these children's mindset? So we have, ladies and gentlemen, growing up around our community. You know, we are, again, every day we're working on community building, and most of you as parents know, you know, schools of belonging, on respect for each other, on you know, again, being a community. And I think that's really what's going to make sure that our students grow up as ladies and gentlemen growing up in our community, for sure. But there are other issues as well. We have to make sure that we address the inequities in our school district and in our community. We need to make sure that students are all receiving the education that they need so they can pursue, you know, their dreams after school, whether it be the workforce or whether it be college or community college or whatever they want to do. So, I mean, there's so many levels to that question. But I mean, I think as far as, you know, I mean, old-fashioned, we used to call it character education, and now we're really talking about community building and working with our students to have that feeling of community for each other and be able to bring that and use that in the rest of their lives. If and when we return to the hybrid plan, improvements need to be made, as currently the teachers are not sufficiently able to pay attention to both students in front of them and those who are joining the class remotely. I've seen my child make multiple attempts to ask questions or answer questions and receive no acknowledgement from the teachers. This is certainly understandable, but needs an improvement. Yeah, I think there's a lot of things we're learning, and that's, you know, this process is a learning process. This is the first time any of us have done this, really. So we're learning every day. We're hearing from our teachers. You know, just a few weeks ago, I received a packet from the union president of all the comments from the teachers that I've reviewed, that I've looked at, that I've spoken to my cabinet about, to talk about what are the things that we can do to make improvements, what supports can we show to make improvements. So we understand that, and we are working. And again, that goes back to a question from a little while ago about how many students are staying home and staying remote, and how can we eliminate that part of our hybrid program where students are not necessarily having to be in class and on the screen at the same time. Based on the numbers that we see, we think that's something that's definitely possible. Is the school district doing anything to help parents whose children are getting low grades due to not participation of their children, despite all the phone calls teachers are making? Well, I mean, again, I think this is a partnership, and I know teachers are making phone calls, talking to parents, trying to encourage them to get their students to log on, sign on, and participate. But I think if there's additional support that you individually feel you need, or anyone who has that same question feels in, I encourage you to call your building principal, communicate with your teacher, come up with some ideas. What are some different things? You know your child, your teacher knows their student, and maybe there are some things that some levers we can push to help that student, you know, get more engaged. So I think that's really a conversation at a different level for you to have with the teachers and the building principal, and see what can we do. What is that thing we can do to get your student to participate? Can you please elaborate on testing protocol if we enter the danger zone? How often? Every week, bi-weekly, and so on? Is it a rapid test, etc., nasal swab, finger stick, etc.? What method? Who gets it? Who doesn't? Out of the 25%, and so on. Clarification, please. Thank you. Well, it would. Okay, so be as clear as I can. And again, there's a lot of different things with these zones and the declarations of these zones. So as clearly as so it would be. There are so if we were to be a yellow zone, for example, we would have to test 20% of our faculty, staff, and students in person in each building. Okay, so and it would have to be 10% the first week and 10% the second week. Okay, if we stay at or below the level of infection that's measured in the community, we can then move on. If we stay above, we then have to continue that testing. So it's a 2-week period where 20% of our students 20% of our in-person faculty, staff, or students need to be tested. It is a nasal swab. And who would get tested? Well, if we put out the permission slips, and we would obviously draw from the pool of the permission slips of who would be tested. If we have 75% of our parents agree to have their students be tested, so it could be very random at during those 2 periods, during those 2 weeks. Have you thought about starting 9th and 10th period again for students that are in person? That would also be a chance for those at home to get extra help that is needed. Yes, we have talked about the in-person part is difficult with our transportation at this time, but we know that there is a need for extra help, and we're brainstorming different ways we can do it. And again, we know the 9th and 10th period were important for students who needed extra help. So we are still working to try to see what can we do, especially looking after the first marking period. What can we do to provide the extra support? If it's online, if it's in person, and how can we, take the resources we have and make that happen? So we are actively looking at that. What has been done to begin the plan to execute the vaccination of all staff? Is there an estimated time for vaccinations? Nothing has been done to begin the plan to execute vaccination of all staff, because we have not been told that we will be vaccinating all staff or that we will be mandated for all staff to be vaccinated. We're waiting on more guidance around that, and I shouldn't say nothing has been done. We are trying to create our testing protocols that will be put in place for if we are identified as a yellow, orange, or red zone, and be able to shift those from testing protocols to vaccination protocols. So if we were able to create a system for testing, can we convert that system to a vaccination system if we are, and again, there's a difference between a vaccination and the test, obviously, as far as who can perform that. So we are, there is this a small bit of planning going on, but we have very little information about when tests will be coming to school districts, who will teachers be required, will students be required, will everyone be required? We really don't know. Will they have the capacity to actually vaccinate everyone in our county with the number of vaccinations that are allotted to us? So we're in a holding pattern on that. In order to make hybrid workstations in the classroom, students in the classroom need devices so that they can collaborate and work with students at home. The district working towards having students being able to bring their devices to school, or have enough for the students that do come to school. Yeah, devices in the building are an issue, and devices in general obviously have been an issue, but we're kind of rounding that corner. So I think now that we're rounding that corner with the supply and kind of getting our feet under us with what we're doing, I think that's a question that needs to be readdressed. We are also looking at our bandwidth, so we're monitoring the use of our bandwidth in our hybrid model to see, could we actually do this? Our concern before was quite honestly a crash, but we were monitoring our bandwidth, seeing what we're using, and seeing if there's a possibility that our system could handle, 15 students at home on computer, 15 students in the classroom, plus the teacher streaming, using Teams, all those things. Can we handle that? So we have a better indication of that now. So that's something that we're going to kind of readdress as we move forward. Please keep us remote for the safety of the staff and families. Yeah, I understand the concern, and obviously we were all watching what's going on. We are remote now. We're going to use the data and the information that we get from Ulster County Department of Health and our health authorities to make a decision that is safe, and that's We're going to keep doing that. Thank you to all the teachers. They are going above and beyond as a community. We need to support their efforts. 100% agree. If students decide to stay remote for the second semester, will they be able to switch to hybrid if they change their mind? Right, that's one of our big concerns. We ask people to go for the whole second semester and say you'll commit to go remote, and then things change in our community. The spread goes down in our community. The vaccine is more readily available. More people are vaccinated, and now we're coming into the end of the school year, and more people want to come back to school. And we've already set our protocols and our safety protocols and our bus routes and our number of students in buses and all those kind of things to meet the numbers that we had in place as of February 1st. So that's why we're working right now to create some exit ramps and on-ramps for students as we move into the second semester that would be more flexible and maybe have people be able to say, okay, I'm going to choose to be remote maybe for a shorter period of time, and then I'm going to rethink that and give us the flexibility to make adjustments maybe on a 5 or a 10-week period for students who maybe want to go remote for a little while, but then they want to come back because we want them back. So we're trying to create it to be a little different for people, obviously, but everything this year has been a little different. Does the school district know the number of students who are falling behind, failing, and struggling with remote learning? My friend's child is an A student in middle school here in Kingston who loves her teachers and loves school. Can the district provide some way for the students who are falling behind to get some individual or small group help from a teacher? Is there a way for parents of these now failing students to share their ideas in order to support their children? Can the district keep track of these failing students so they support? We do. I mean, we are keeping track, obviously. I mean, there was a big conversation after the first market period to take a look, not only at students who are failing, but I think also something that you kind of think you said in there, students who used to be 90 students who are now 75 students. What's happening there? Why is that? And I think the first place to have the conversation is with your teacher. I know you asked of different areas of support. First place to talk to your teacher at the building level. But yes, we are actively looking at not only students who are failing, but students who we've seen significant drops. And we're going to be working with our teachers to see what we need to do to provide that support to help those students get those grades back to where they were, or for other students get those grades back above the passing level. As of today, what are the total positive cases for both students remote and in person and total staff tested positive? You know what? I don't know the exact numbers right now off the top of my head. We do post them. They are on the portal. They are also on the New York State Department of Health school portal, and that gives you all of the information about how many of our students are and faculty and staff have been tested positive. Surveys to parents could give school staff important information on what is working and what is not, even if individual school level. It often feels like we have to figure out how to make remote learning for our children while also working, etc. More information could be helpful from families to meet children's needs for learning in these difficult situations. I think survey is probably a good idea. I mean, we did a survey in the spring and got some good ideas. We surveyed our teachers and got some good ideas. But I think after coming into a winter break coming to the halfway mark at the end of January, some of those ideas and that kind of information would be good. Is there something parents need to do other than call the school when there is an internet outage? I know a couple of teachers give an issue if the child says they didn't have internet. We currently have 3+ kids in the home on the internet. Yeah, so there's there's several different kinds of internet outages, right? You have them when you have too many people at home, working home, and it stretches your internet capacity too far, or there's just a local, something happens in your community or certain areas. Again, I think if you're having internet issues that are beyond just what's going on in your home, I can encourage you to call our help desk, which is 943-3020, and they may be able to give you, A, find out if there really is an outage in that area, or B, maybe give you even some tips to expand your internet capacity within your house. I know they do some genius things in there, and they may have some good ideas. I don't think all faculty and staff have gotten the memo about wearing masks around each other. How can you remind them again and make clear the policy? Yeah, well, I just had this conversation with our COVID-19 director this morning. So I mean, I think I've reminded our building principals. It's been on faculty meeting agendas, and again, I'm sure there's plenty of faculty, staff, and employees who are tuned in right here today. And I will say again, wear your mask. It's extremely important to be wearing your mask for the safety of yourself and the people around you. But we will continue to encourage it, continue to actually demand it. People need to be wearing their masks. And again, it's not just about you, it's about everybody around you. Why close on snow days if we're already remote? Will that continue? Yes, that will continue. We're closing on snow days if we're remote for the same reason that we ask teachers to come into the buildings during the remote period, because the best tools for the trade are in their classrooms. They don't have those at home. If in the case of like last Thursday, when there was internet outages from the storm throughout the community, if we had students who were logging on and teachers who were at home and the internet was out in their area, they wouldn't have been able to get on. And again, we have sporadic and localized power issues. So in our school, we know we have reliable power source. We know we have reliable internet. We know we have all the tools of the trade there. So we will continue to have snow days if there's inclement weather moving forward. Students' bandwidth is so variable. At least half of the students in the class at any given time are experiencing some sort of glitches, freezing during lessons. Can we influence Spectrum in any way to beef it up? We are working, and I met with our Chief Information Officer and our Director of Technology this afternoon, I should say, and we talked about what are our next steps? How can we work more with Spectrum? We have several different ideas of how we could possibly get a little leverage that we're working on, but right now, again, Spectrum is who Spectrum is, and we do have some issues with some of the internet in that way. I agree, it is so variable. Some students never have a problem, and some students have a problem every single day. So we are kind of working behind the scenes to try to see what we can do to influence Spectrum, or to somehow partner with Spectrum to help us help them to do to have a more reliable internet for every single student. Are there guidelines as to how much homework is being assigned by teachers? My high school student is struggling to complete the week's assignments and is often burnt out after sitting in front of a computer for 6 hours. Then to have to be online to do work for each of those classes. My child is often spending the weekends just trying to catch up. Well, we really do. We have there are overall guidelines, but we really put our faith in the teachers, knowing their students, knowing the coursework, and knowing what their students can handle. I think we're in a different world. I get that, and sometimes there needs to be some adjustments. After the first market period, that's one of the conversations I had with both the assistant superintendents. Is what's the homework load look like, and is this one of the reasons we're seeing students' grades go down, not because of the homework necessarily, but maybe because of that burnout. Maybe there are assignments that aren't getting turned in because of that burnout. So we need to again work with our teachers, find out what are they seeing as far as homework is concerned, and what can we do to maybe bring that down a few notches, a little bit of air out of that balloon. Because you're right, sitting in front of the screen all day and then having to sit in front of it for hours at night is going to burn students out. That's not something we want to see happen. Currently, students who go to school in person receive many breaks during the day for mask breaks, recess, etc. What will happen now that there is deep snow and the freezing temperatures, especially if you are looking at bringing more students into each classroom? How will students be able to safely have breaks with less room to distance. Well, I just did so back on. We're not necessarily looking to bring more students into classrooms. We're looking to see if, are there still really the students in the classrooms? So are we really having students, who are remote and not coming in? And can we combine our maroon and our gold days and let all those students come all 4 days? And again, that's maybe more, but that's not more than we've originally assigned. We're just having a significant number of absences and students who are choosing a remote without designating themselves as remote. So we're not looking at overloading or packing classrooms with more than what the safety protocols kind of dictate. But yes, again, I think there's a lot of opportunities for masks. We can use large spaces like our gyms if we need to for breaks if the weather's bad, and quite honestly, we can go outside if it's not a terrible day out. Our parking lots are plowed, our playgrounds can be cleared in ways that we can bring kids outside. So I think there's still that opportunity, unless it's dangerous, very, very dangerous outside. There's still the opportunity to take students outside, and actually a little fresh air and a mask break is probably a really good thing for them in this situation. How are you encouraging teachers, especially elementary school, to get kids moving during the day? My kid only gets to walk, no running allowed, around the building during recess. Yeah, I know especially when students are home, it's hard for us to get that going in PE at that level on remote, while I give our teachers, not only our teachers, but all our teachers, credit for a lot of the ingenuity and creative ideas they've had. Isn't the same as obviously PE, and even when they're in school, PE is still a little different than it would be during normal times. So again, looking at the PE guidelines, making sure we have some level of activity built into every day for all students is one of the things that are, especially at the elementary level, that has always been part of our planning, and I think that we need to encourage as much of that as possible. As a grandparent, I've observed a lot of chatting among students while the teacher is trying to keep everyone focused on the lesson. Can the chat feature on the Teams be restricted to the teacher, to each student, rather than an open forum? I honestly, I had a conversation about this morning. It can't. We can't turn the chat feature off within Teams at this point. I've spoke with our IT director, and it's just not something we can do right now. It's just not something that the Teams has the capacity to do. So I guess the answer to that is at this point, no. But I hear what you're saying, and we're aware of that issue and several others that have to do with the chat that we're trying to engage the right people to come up with a solution for that. Has there been any consideration around relaxing assessments locally, common assessments, benchmarks, etc.? There's a lot of conversations about assessment in general. I mean, it's important that we assess, especially now. We need to know where our students are, where they are, and what we need to do to support them. So, but there is conversations about that. Several of our common assessments have been shortened. I know that there's been conversation with teachers about what we can do with common assessments to make them relevant, but not not a burden. But we do, one of the things we need to do throughout this process, and always in education, is we need to have opportunities to assess learning, so we can then make our planning based on what our students are, where their strengths and their weaknesses are as we move forward. Even in COVID-19, world that we're in here, we still need to know what our students know and know how we can get them the information they need and get the skills that they need. So assessment, while it doesn't need to be, overwhelming, assessment still needs to happen, data still needs to be collected, and we need to be able to tailor our education and our instruction based on that data of what we know kids do and don't know. If a teacher has told students that they can't look away from the computer screen, I mean this literally, parentheses, but the student wants to take a break, what should they do? This seems like an unreasonable and unhealthy expectation. I'm very worried about the children's eye health, and so are eye doctors. Yeah, I mean, I think you need to have a conversation with the teacher, and if that's not an effective way, I think you need to have a conversation with the building principal. I mean, people are going to look away from the screen. We are encouraging students not to turn their screens off, not to turn their cameras off. Be present, just like you were in a classroom. Teacher can see you, you can see the teacher. But I mean, to say I can't look away for a minute, or that's not necessarily productive. So I again encourage you to have a conversation with your teacher. Maybe there's a misunderstanding, and if that's not productive, have a conversation with your building principal. I think there's always a middle road. I don't think any of our teachers would do anything that would purposely be that restrictive or harmful for our students. Okay. What additional information is the district looking for regarding the decision to be remote after the break, given the rise in community spread? Kingston appears to be the only district that has not yet announced their post-holiday plans. Yeah, well, we're looking, one of the biggest things we're looking at is our faculty and staff. So, we look as many of our faculty staff that were on quarantine coming out of the Thanksgiving break from the Thanksgiving surge are coming back now. They're off quarantine. So are we going to be fully staffed and ready to go on January 4th, or do we have a new surge of quarantines that are going to put us out past that time? So we're looking at that and see, can we actually open school with our faculty and staff? Again, the spread among our students has not been the issue. The issue has been positive cases in our faculty and staff, and the quarantining that's happened because of those positive cases, or positive cases that they've had contact with in the community that created a quarantine situation. So it's a rolling number. We're looking at the number of quarantine people who will be out past a certain date, and those who are coming back, and many that created this situation that we're in right now, that we moved away from the hybrid to remote. Many of those individuals are coming back from their quarantine and ready to start working. So, but we need to see how many new ones are coming up. And again, some of it is prediction, some of it is guesswork, to be honest with you. But we need to see, get a really handle on what we can get our handle on, and then make a decision. Will you be calling delays to allow teachers to safely make it to the building when there is inclement weather? Many roads throughout Kingston were not cleared still, and several school buildings had lots and sidewalks that are still icy and snow covered. We'll still be using the same protocols we used in the past around delays and snow days. There was some issues with some roads in Kingston, and we did, again, I speak to our, we have people on the road every day when there's inclement weather, and our director of building grounds gives me the information about our buildings, and I make my decision based on that information. So, but we will continue. We'll call delays if necessary, and we'll call snow days if necessary. This will be my last question for today, and actually, I don't think it's a question. Please take a moment to acknowledge the close to 6,000 students who are showing up and doing the best they can during this pandemic. Thank you. Yeah, I think close to 6,500 students are showing up and doing the best they can during this pandemic. It's been difficult. It's difficult for everyone, and I think a lot of when we talk about how difficult it is on adults, when in reality, I think we need to look how difficult this is for students, how difficult it is beyond just the learning, how difficult it is to be socially distant, and I don't use that in the way that we're using it as for COVID-19, from their friends and from their activities. And I was one of the only superintendents in Section 9 who encouraged sports to start sooner. Now, I know we look at the spread, but I mean, our students need things to do. Our students need to have activities and be out and be able to at least interact at some level with each other. So yes, students are showing up remotely. Students are showing up when we're in hybrid, and there really are. I mean, if you go into the buildings and you see our students who are coming in, you see they're happy to be here, and we're happy to have them. So yes, we know this is a difficult time, and we know there are a lot of, almost all of our students really are coming out and doing everything they can to be successful, and we need to do everything we can to support them. So thank you for asking me to make that statement. Again, I appreciate your time. It's coming up on 6 o'clock, so we will probably by the middle of break or so be putting out a schedule of all of our town halls, at least for the next few months, so people know and can plan. And we will also be looking at our our Spanish town hall so that we can fulfill that promise. But again, be safe, have a happy new year, and be careful. Thank you.